On November 19, 1998, Valve, led by Gabe Newell and Mike Harrington, who both worked at Microsoft and gave up their jobs to pursue their dream of making video games, they released a game called Half-Life, a game that will change the genre of first-person shooter, improve the game can have a compelling story and interesting game mechanics, which from today's time surprised what players find. Subsequently, it was named Best Game of All Time 4 times and won over 50 Game of the Year awards. Also in the honor of the games community, we have been blessed with modes such as Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, Day of Defeat and other games based on the Half-Life engine. After the success of the franchise, Valve immediately began development of Half-Life 2 on June 1999, 6 months after the release of the original game. The second installment of the game was in full swing. Gabe said in his speeches, "Why spend 4 years of your life creating something that is not innovative and essentially meaningless? If Half-Life 2 is not considered the best PC game of all time, it's going to completely bottom those guys on our team out of the business." There are no set deadlines and a virtual unlimited budget for the entire Valve team. Also, with the development of Half-Life 2 was in a full swing development of its own engine called Source. For the first part of Half-Life was made on a modified Quake engine called Gold Source. Half-Life 2 was supposed to be much more epic and global. The game wanted to be able to teleport between planets, but this mechanic was later abandoned as it made continuing between levels much more difficult. At the suggestion of Bulgarian art director Victor Antonov, rest in peace, the team settled in a city in Eastern Europe, namely Victor's native country Bulgaria, in the city of Sofia. Valve developers flew to Bulgaria to study the infrastructure of the country to recreate the anti-utopia City 17 in Half-Life 2. Developers observed how players interacting with secondary characters in Half-Life, and the team developed characterization with more detailed character models and realistic animation. Animator Ken Birdwell studied the work of psychologist Paul Ekman, who researched how facial muscle express emotion. In the late 2001, Valve began creating a showreel, hoping to show it off at the E3 2002. For several months, Newell let the team work without his input so he could provide objectively feedback and focus on the development of Steam, Valve's upcoming digital store. The team presented Newell with a showreel demonstration physics, environment, and a dialogue-rich scene with character scientist Dr. Kleiner. Newell feels the showreel inadequately showed how feasible to affect gameplay, and the Kleiner scene was too long. Reflection on failure, Laidlaw said, "Dramatic character scenes are important, but they should serve interactivity in gameplay." So the showreel itself was ultimately not shown, but the first trailer was leaked on May 16 in 2003. In September 2002, the team completed a second showreel showing a buggy race along the coast of City 17, an encounter with head crabs on the pier, a strider attack in the city, and a greatly abridged episode of Kleiner. In October, Newell told the team that they will announce Half-Life 2 at the E3 2003 and release it by the end of the year. As an original Half-Life, the team split into conspiracy working on the different levels. Designer created level using shapes and fill surfaces which were then worked on by artists. Valve announced Half-Life 2 at the E3 2003 with demonstration of characters, animation and physics. Reaction was positive and the game won the E3 Game of the Show award. Newell also announced a release date of September 30, 2003. Hopefully motivating the team. They worked long hours to meet the deadlines, but by July 8 it was clear they will miss it. Rumors of delay began to swirl. On September 23, Valve released a statement about releasing the game in time for the holiday season, which caused a negative reaction from fans. Newell was hesitant to announce the delay without a new release date. He later said, "We were paralyzed. We know we couldn't make the promised date. It will be a huge fiasco and really embarrassing, but we also didn't have a new date to let people know." After post-posting and delaying the release of Half-Life 2 until September 19, 2003, when Valve servers were hacked. In 2002, a young German programmer, Axel Gambi, who was a fan of Half-Life series, had an idea to hack into Valve's network to find out something about the sequel. So he scanned Valve's network to see if there any available web server when he threw information about the game might be stored. Valve did not protect the server from its external network. Once he did, he had full access to everything. Weeks went by and he realized that no one at Valve had noticed that he was inside the company's network. On this day, Gambi downloaded the game's unfinished code. The game would run on his computer, so he made some changes to the code to make it work in basic form. He only had a basic chunk of the game's development. They had a lot of development branches that he couldn't even test. Source code of the Source engine dated October 2, 2003, and an unfinished version of the game on October 7 were leaked to the internet by a friend of Gambi. Gabe Newell publicly explained the situation on the fan site Half-Life.net, or now Valve Time forums, and asked the community to help track down the hackers. Gambi later contacted Newell via email. He was misled that Valve wanted to hire him as an internal security auditor. He was offered to fly to the US and was to be arrested by the FBI upon arrival. When the German government learned about this plan, Gimel was arrested in Germany and went on trial in November 2006. For leaking information as well as other computer crimes such as creating Agabot, a highly successful Trojan that collected user data. At this trial in November 2006 in Germany, Gimel was given a 2-year suspended sentence. In sentencing, the judge considered factors such as Gimel's difficult childhood and the fact that he had taken steps to improve his situation. While Valve has never made any official statement about the community should view and use the leaked files, no action has been taken against websites or people using and posting content related to the leak. Valve sanctioned websites and games such as Garry's Mod contains content related to the leaks and discussing them as not prohibited on the website's Facepunch forums, which has been prohibited in the past. The general consensus then will be that Valve is no longer concerned about the use of the leaked files. So not blessed as long they were used for free. When asked by Valve via email on July 12, 2009 about the status of the beta mod misinformation, the response was, "The mod is not illegal to download and play as long as it's just a mod." The game was in development at the time, is clearly not finalized and quite unstable, and some have not even load. At the time of the leak, chapters such as Exchange, Borealis, and Skyscraper had already been cut, and City 17 already had its Central Eastern Europe style, making the leak look very similar to the final retail product, in reflecting how Half-Life 2 looked in 2003. So their cuts were not made because of the leak, but for other reasons in much earlier development process. The game built itself underwent huge changes and was cut down before release. Citizens have different modems and face maps. Most of the replants are voiced by Mark Laidlaw, and they can only use a stun gun, SMG-1, and OCV. Civil defense were simply referred as the cops by the citizens. While they have early voice lines,
"You're that guy! You! Hey! Isn't that Freeman?" "Freeze! Stay where you are! Get on the ground! Do it now! Get out of there! There's no point in hiding! What you want? Quit your belly! Could be."
they only utter idle statement and do not speak with Overwatch voice. The other file consist of the group of several zip files WS map pack. WS stands for Worldcraft and the early name of the Hammer's level editor, containing about 1,300 uncompleted VMF or Valve map files, maps from the earliest chapter already cut in the playable version of the game. Most of them are repetitive and nearly identical. Demo, prototype maps, and maps from the playable version are arranged in about 16 folders named after the developers who worked on them, and taking up about 3 GB. This mod can be opened in a Hammer and run in any Half-Life game after fixing texture and compiling them into BSP maps. Most of the maps are very old and were released in 2001 or 2002. The leaked files available online are practically only a fraction of the original files used in development on Half-Life 2, as there are many other maps, models, sounds, scripts, and texture, as well reference photos taken in the US and Europe that were used for inspiration during development. The Half-Life 2 storyline went through many versions from 1998 to the final 2004 version. Most of the early story concepts and ideas cut before 2003 are included based on information taken from the Rising the Bar book. The leaked playable beta is files and also leaked WS map pack. During story development, the game at one point had to last 4 days instead of 3, not counting the week Alex and Gordon spent between the two teleporters in Half-Life 2. Characters also changed a lot. For example, Bryn was also known as a consul. Alex was the Captain West's daughter. Eli was the Ella Maxwell and was not related to Alex, among other things. The most significant change was in the setting, which changed from a very dark American setting to a lighter Eastern Europe setting. The early stage of Half-Life 2 development featured a much darker and more oppressive atmosphere. The game action took place mostly at night, and the weather was often rainy and foggy. The combined empire, which became much more sinister in the version, pumped minerals out of the ocean and emitted toxic gases, creating a bleak dystopian landscape. Because of the toxic air, people had to wear gas masks, adding to the overall feeling of the helplessness and hopelessness. While it is possible to identify a roach old storyline, there is no such thing as a consistent original Half-Life 2 storyline. Not all cut concepts and story elements were created at the same time and maybe not be consistent with each other, and some are unknown and or lost forever. After the final of Half-Life 1, Gordon Freeman defeats Nihiland, the entity that maintains the rift. He is then disarmed and summoned by the mysterious G-Man, who offers him a job for his employers. Gordon accepts and he places Gordon in stasis.
Wisely done, Mr. Freeman. I will see you up ahead.
Halfway through begins with Gordon waking up to G-Man, who tells him bits and pieces of what happened over the last 10 years, but doesn't tell him much. Gordon then finds himself on a train in the Badlands and meets the resident, Samuel, who tells him about his life and gives him a few clues of what's going on. He also gives him a spare gas mask, as the air is not always breathable due to the active of the air exchange. The train ride allows the player to see Wasteland outside of City 17, with ruins, rubbles, hounds, bullseye, and other unknown fauna. Another train nearly is attacked by Gargantua, but the monster is destroyed by a heavy engine. The Wasteland train then travels inland first to Old Town, which has been destroyed, and is shown New Town, transformed by the Combine and surrounded by a huge controlled wall protection from the danger of the Wasteland. Gordon glimpses the townspeople in their apartments. Finally, the train arrives at the station, and the cremator can be seen clearing the train of the bull bodies and head crabs that have managed to penetrate the perimeter. Notable retail usage information severely cut. Samuel was removed, but his face was used in Just Citizen and Falcon Strike Source. Home life, which has originally only seen in glimpses, can now be seen firsthand when Gordon actually walks through the apartment buildings. City walls later appeared at the end of the first episode, but served mostly decorative purpose. The architecture of City 17 was drastically different, reminiscent of American East Coast cities with large skyscrapers. The Citadel also underwent many design changes, eventually adopting the intimidating Eastern Europe style we know today. Gordon is supposed to meet Barney at the final station, who instructs you to find him in the Manhattan arcade. Instead of going straight to Clinder's Lab like in the retail version, the original plan had a longer exploration of City 17. This journey will take you through industrial neighborhood filled with combined factories and patrolled by metro cops. You'll see the creepy crematorium factory, where children collect heads for the cremators, and pass through other neighborhoods like in the stenographic chasm. There are also the Manhattan arcade location. Here, townspeople play games controlling real Manhattans and only kill real fugitives lurking in the street. After the room opening, you finally meet Barney, making it through the xeno-infected server in Interclainer's lab. In the Cleaner's lab, the story progresses in the same way as the retail version. You get a new HIV suit and go to meet Dr. Mossman at the Kraken base. Walk through Console Square, travel through the canals, and escape City 17 on foot, jet ski, or airboat. This part was originally much longer, with various enemies such as bull squids and hound eyes. Gordon travels to the Wasteland, and dry up oceans was turned into coastline in the final version of the game. Combined tempering environment has created a bleak and treacherous terrain, in stark contrast to the sunny beaches of the final version. This is where Gordon battles combined outposts, anti-land, and other Zen creatures. After traveling through the Wasteland, Gordon arrives in the early version of Ravenholm, Quarry Town. This location too is swarming with zombies full trapped by Father Gregory. Gordon arrives at the Elia Lair, a criminal laboratory, when he meets Elia Maxwell, Doc, and possibly Alex. Elia provides a physics manipulator, an early version of gravity gun, and tells Gordon about the events of the last decade, including the air exchange in the Combine. He warns of the particle storm, a dangerous entity believed to possess consciousness. After passing through cave filled with anti-lions, Gordon encounters the Ant-King, a concept later used as the Ant Guardian in episode 2. Upon reaching the depot, Gordon ignites a chaotic battle between Alliance soldiers and anti-lions, which ends in an explosion firefight. He then boards a train to the air exchange. The air exchange guards by Alliance constrictor led by Vance, releasing toxic gas into the atmosphere. Gordon mentioned sabotage the facility by shutting down the reactor core, triggering human uprising in City 17. This concept was eliminated in the final version of the game, which presents fighting no prospect and the destruction of the Citadel reactor. Finally, Gordon reaches the shore, meeting Odell, the former engineer of the ship Borealis in the Arctic. Together with Odell, you take a tugboat to reach the Borealis, a huge abandoned ship stranded in a cold, dark and snowy expanse. The corridors of the ship are littered with corpses, zombies and stalkers. As you navigate the ghostly ship, you encounter combined enemies who launch a first attack that leaves the ship badly damaged and on fire. Gordon's goal is to find a mini submarine on board which uses to get the Rebel Underwater Research Center, Kraken base. There was to be the next stop after escaping from Borealis. Here, Gordon was supposed to meet Alina Mossman, and the battle seems imminent, as hinted by the distress signal in a tragic accident in rebuilt Citadel flood into the facility, and Gordon would escape in a capsule. After capturing the Kraken base, Gordon, Alex, Captain Vance, and the Rexus launch an attack on his Combine's water control, a massive dome that deprives Earth of oxygen. Of course, details are scarce, but the battle was to be a standoff involving warships and the combined elite soldiers. After the intense battle, Gordon and Alex boarded a C-130 cargo plane in return to 2017. Around the same time, Wentz himself will return as well. A plane crashed into a skyscraper in the center of the city, Vertigo. Vertigo was a massive Art Deco skyscraper that a C-130 crashed into early concept. After the crash, Alex is injured and kidnapped. She informed you of her father's location and asked Gordon to find his headquarters before the Metro cops take her.
Gordon! I'm hurt! Can't move! Go on without me. Find my father. There's an emergency bunker near the inner gates. He's in command there. Tell him that
Gordon makes his way down the collapsing building, encountering the combined soldier and other enemies, eventually reaching the entrance on the middle floor with a window cleaning platform. Meanwhile, a full-scale war has broken out on the street of City 17. You moved into smaller buildings nearby enjoying the battle on the rooftops. In the alternate version of the level, a helicopter crashed into a building called the Palace instead of plane. Vertigo was changed to Palace when developers started to adopt a more Eastern Europe look for the city, so the building is more reminiscent of Stalinist architecture. It was an exhibition center with display of vases, brain busts, and numerous other display cases. One room even had ictiovisor hanging from the ceiling. You will have to fight your way out, with the helicopter chasing and shooting at you behind the building. Anyway, Gordon joined the conscript in the roof to fight and gradually making his way down to the ground level. This section involves Gordon fighting all the snipers and helping the conscript in the way he can. The meeting likely took place at the Wentz headquarters, near the inner gate of the Citadel outer wall, where you may be planning to rescue Alex, among other things. You return to the underground level, where you encounter several Hydras. The creatures don't waste any time. They're fast, agile, and just a few hits can be fatal. As you make your way through the tunnels, you will be pursued by Hydras that appear out of nowhere. You must carefully, but quickly make your way past them and take the elevator to the surface. Finally, you reach the Citadel and the council office. You find Alex and discover that Dr. Mossman has betrayed you. Using an encounter the council, who have sacrificed most of their human bodies to begin the process of becoming immortal using combined technology. Further details such as what happened to Alex, Dr. Mossman, and Captain Wentz were unknown.
Let go of me, you bitch! Gordon, don't listen to them. You know what you have to do. What do you mean you speak for humanity? You can't speak for something you're not a part of anymore. Call yourself consul or whatever you want. But you're really just another cog in the combine machinery.
It is assuming the Gordon kills the council and survived. Leaked maps hint at the significant space in Citadel that may have played a role in its destruction.
Well, well, isn't this just like old times?
Story I told you is the most early story concept it had discussed before 2003, which was already pretty similar to the final product. Most of all, this included basic information taken from the Rise in the Bar book, a leaked playable beta and its files, and a leaked WS map pack that contains many maps from the early development. During story development, the game at one point had to last 4 days instead of 3, not counting the week spent by Alex and Gordon between two teleporters to the main plot of the Half-Life 2. The most significant change from the beta to the retail version touches specifically on the game setting itself, which went from a very dark American setting to a lighter Eastern Europe setting. While it was possible to identify a roach old storyline, there is no such thing as a consistent original Half-Life 2 storyline. Not all concept and story elements were created at the same time and not be consistent with each other, and some are unknown and or lost forever. Therefore, when trying to make sense of the old storyline still development of Half-Life 2, it's best not to speculate too much and try to stick known and confirm it as much as possible, although it can be difficult to derive consistent data from the all known data. Now let's move on to what was cut from the game. What weapons, enemies, characters, and the like were either removed or changed during the development and release of the game. The leaked files available online are apparently only a fraction of the original found used in the development, as there are many other maps, models, sounds, scripts, and texture, as well over 50,000 reference photos taken in the US and Europe that were used for inspiration during development. Throughout development, the weapon arsenal changed significantly, and there were several weapons that were differently for what is in the game at this time of its release. Weapons were later cut before the final release. It has been suggested that most of the weapons were cut because they were too similar to each other, as the AR-1 served a very similar role to the AR-2, the SMG-2 to the SMG-1, the crowbar to the Ice Axe and stun button, and so on, and that it would not be very plausible to have more than 25 weapons. At most, at one point, a limited weapon system was implemented where the player would discard a weapon before picking up the new one. Most of the non-released weapons can be used in a playable Half-Life 2 beta, and some can be used in a misinformation mode, so sometimes with some modifications. But there are many removed weapons in device worth to tell. The binoculars were not technically a weapon. It could zoom into 5 times normal sight. However, the player could not fire a weapon while using it. They were integrated into HIV suit as a zoom feature and the crossbow scope. Also, if searching some of the binocular sounds file, it can be found what was supposed to play some kind of music when using or zooming it. Breakbait was an unfinished weapon that was supposed to allow the player to use a small set of props as of weapons by picking them up on the ground and throwing them. They included at least 4 items: rocks, cremator hats, head crabs, a mirror image of Snark from Half-Life, and beer bottles. The name of this entity, weapon /breakbat, can still be found in a hammer, so it is not valid. It was probably removed for them or redundancy. The gravity cannon allows the player to pick up and throw just about anything he can get his hands on. In the playable beta, the Molotov cocktail looks like a head crab when it appears, but when thrown it becomes a regular Molotov. SLAM, or stand for Selectable Lightweight Attack Munitions. They can be thrown or placed on walls. The player can throw as many slams as he wants and then detonate them at once. In addition, there is Tripman mode. It was used in Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, various modes such as Garage mode, and appears armed at various points in Nova Prospect. The Combine Guard gun was configured as a weapon used by Combine Guards and then purchased by the player. It resembles a Strider Warp gun, but scaled down so it can be carried by human-sized units. It can kill everything with a single shot, which was probably why it was cut, cancelled along with the Common Guard concept, so the sound of this fine was reused for Portal. Of course, for cat enemies we have to talk about the famous Cremator. He's a huge humanoid enemy that was planned to be on release, but ended up being cut before release. His image is he's about 10 feet tall, was dressed in a long dark green robe, and had a distinctive head with 2 glowing yellow circles. His primary function was to serve as a combine cleaner, tasked with burning corpses in City 17 and destroying wild animals from Zen that might have infiltrated trains coming from the Wasteland. Equipped with the Immolator, a flamethrower weapon that emitted a corrosive green plasma beam. The Cremator could split organic matter on contact. In the early stage of development, children were depicted collecting cremator heads in the factory in City 17. Although the cremator was removed from the final version of the game, the surviving head appears in the Easter egg in the Alliance One's lab in East Black Mesa. The Alien Assassin, also called it Combined Alien Assassin or Prowler, was a transhuman foe. This creature had elongated her arms, ending in the sharp claws, red spikes on its head, and a breathing apparatus built into its facial structure. An interesting aspect of the alien agent is a relationship to the fast zombie. The fast zombie design and behavior were borrowed from the alien assassins, which clearly shows how concepts changed during game development. In addition, Alien Assassin was to have a zombie-fed version known as a zombie assassin. This version looks more grotesque with the limbs of the head crab being woven into the host's body, bones exposed and lips redeemed it. The Hydra I showed you as a worm-like creature from neon blue color. It consisted of 3 tentacles which ended in a separate head and a jelly-like transparent body showing internal organs. The Hydra was designed to inhabit the underground part of City 17 and the surrounding suburbs. Early demonstration, notably at the E3 2003 presentation, showed the Hydra being implanted on the overarch shoulder in the server of City 17. This encounter was scripted to emphasize the creature's deadly capabilities. Despite significant efforts by the developers, including coding and AI work by Valve's Ken Birdwell, the header was excluded from the final version of the game. This decision was influenced by the slow attack speed, which could not provide players with challenging experience. The particle storm is a cattle enemy known mostly from the audio files and mentioned in the game's beta source code. In earlier audio files, Elijah Maxwell warns Gordon Freeman of the danger of the particle storm, describing it as emitting a green light and recounting how he lost a leg when he started to study it. He also mentioned that he saw a particle storm destroy gunboats carrying soldiers. Elijah suggested that despite there was some considered to be just an electrical disturbance, the particle storm may possess a mind and expressed a desire to communicate with its potential ally. The beta file included a particle storm folder with the sound effects, form, dissipate, hover, and lighting indicating particle storm internet behavior. The beta version of Half-Life itself gives the community of this version the opportunity to make the released version of the second part, a darker one which was originally planned for the release before the hack. For example, the most famous mod that you can try is Raising the Bar Redux. The mod team itself recreated expands on the early concept and content for the beta version. The mod offers a player a reimagined experience, good graphics to give a more modern look, and also included elements that were originally cut or changed during the development of the original game. They will be providing the look that was in the beta. The development of the mod was marked by a series of structured releases, which is called Division. Division first, the initial release of reimagined City 17, emphasizing the oppressive atmosphere under the control of the Combine. It lays the foundation of the development of the narrative and gameplay that the mod itself aims to achieve. The Division 2 building on its predecessor, the expansion of the storyline including Gordon Freeman's escape from City 17, his encounter with the character Elijah, and his trip to a journal through Ravenholm. This release also included updates and rework of the Division 1, ensuring the cohesive atmosphere. The Division 3, released as a demo. This installment focuses on the assault on the Combine's stronghold in the Wasteland known as the Depot. It provides a glimpse into the most future content. It demonstrates the team committing to expand the beta universe of the game, integrating them into cohesive and immersive narrative. The mod introduces updates, combat, reworked weapons, and new features that ensure the gameplay will remain true to the original vision. The team achieved engagement with the community, regularly providing updates to the development progress. These updates often include information on the map development, weapon upgrades, animation improvement, and team expansion. The next mod is Air Exchange. The mod itself aims to recreate the CAT chapter Air Exchange for the beta version of the game. This chapter is also known as the Air Conditioner or Irex. The modding community has shown considerable interest in revising the lost chapter. Several projects have aimed to recreate or reimagine an Air Exchange, using available concept art, leaked maps, and storyline details to match Valve's original vision. Project City 17, the mod, revised and reimagined the beta version of the iconic City 17 chapter. The meta aims to restore the lost content from the Half-Life 2 beta leak, presenting a universe which is darker and more unique aesthetic. The development team has painstakingly reconstructed various maps, environments that were originally envisioned during early development. Notable areas under reconstruction include each map is crafted to match the vision of the original beta, including detailed textures, atmospheric lighting, and intricate layouts. Also, to avoid making the video longer, I quickly mention other mods that are also worth mentioning. Half-Life 2 Year 3 mode meticulously recreates early demos of the game that may or may not have been shown at the Year 3, showcasing cut content and development changes, and the Thin Remaster revives one of the first Half-Life 2 modes, updating it for the modern system that improves assets and the option beta aesthetic while preserving the early modding history. The Half-Life 2 beta is a rare glimpse into creative house that 6 years of development led to. And the game's atmosphere was completely rewritten, but behind one of the greatest games ever made. From the abandoned mechanics and terrifying cut chapters to reworked characters in entire environment, the beta reveals a darker, more experimental version of Half-Life 2, which most would never officially reach players. The community has kept it alive, modifying, restoring, and reimagining what could have been. The mod themselves proves that beta's legacy is far from the forgotten and is quite beloved by many players. In the end, the beta is not just a footnote, it's an integral part of the Half-Life series history, bridging the gap between rough imagination and polished reality. And now, in 2025, after the 21st anniversary of Half-Life in 2023, the 20th anniversary of Half-Life 2 in 2024, in the documentary itself, where the developers not only fearlessly talk about the development, along the way even shows gameplay that no one has seen before. Gabe himself is no longer afraid to talk about the reason for non-release of Half-Life 2 Episode 3, and also demonstration the mechanics in the third episode itself. According to rumors that were found in the Source 2 codes in the project of the Deadlock, CS2 and Dota 2, it can be assumed that Valve is really cooking something for the upcoming release, which is called HLX. But we know how Valve itself works with their projects. Valve time have many cancelled and frozen projects that were. We don't yet know exactly what will be announced in 2025, but according to all the news, we can assume that Valve is definitely preparing to show something, as was with Half-Life Alyx.
Ricochet 2